I had been staying in Bergen on a city break, and my journey started from the train station there. My first stop was at Voss to transfer to a bus. I had pre-purchased my ticket, so I was able to jump straight on to one of the waiting coaches and luckily get a front seat. The road we took was the E16, a largely historic route between Oslo and Bergen, originally known as the King's Road before it was given its European reference number. I could have driven the E16 myself when transferring from Oslo to Bergen, but the journey takes 7 or more hours, so I'd chosen the train as a more restful option. My enduring impression of Norway is the multitude of trees, and there are reputed to be about 11 billion of them, but where possible there were lush meadows too. A lot of rural buildings are a rich ochre red because originally paint made from iron oxide was the cheapest type, but now it is a tradition and contrasts well with the green of the countryside. At this junction the bus took a little detour up to a famous viewpoint at the Stalheim Hotel. To access the view required passing through their lobby and then the sun lounge to the back. While selfies were being taken, as many people had their back to the view as facing it. The river flowing down the valley runs into a fjord at Gudvangen, which was also to be my next destination. Back on the E16 we passed through a series of tunnels, which are another feature of Norway, with it having some 1,200 road tunnels and hundreds more railway ones. At Gudvangen I was going to swap my bus for a cruise boat. It had just arrived in from Flem and was still offloading its passengers. During a 2-hour trip I was going to travel up the fjord on the left and down the one on the right. My vessel was the Future of the Fjords, one of 2 electric craft that shuttle silently between the 2 ports. It had a unique, inclusive design to provide up to 400 tourists with all-round vantage points to view the stunning fjord scenery. Its cruising speed is a fairly sedate 16 knots or 30 kilometers per hour. There are also rigid inflatables on the fjords with high-performance engines that can go 2 or 3 times faster, but their passengers have to wear insulating bodysuits to be protected from the cold. There can be up to 25 waterfalls along the fjord, depending on rainfall and melt from the mountain's snow and ice. The first fjord I travelled up was the Norway Fjord, which was 18 kilometers long but could be as narrow as 500 meters wide. Later, at about the halfway point in the cruise, we would turn right into Fjord. My trip was based on a package sold by a tour company that had copyrighted it as Norway in a nutshell. But I had booked all the elements myself to suit my preferred timings and activities. Kayaks are a more leisurely way of enjoying the fjords, and they can give access to quiet spots along the banks for picnics and wild camping. Both the fjords I cruised through are part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. One year the Norway fjord had also been rated by the National Geographic Society as being the world's #1 natural heritage site. The surrounding mountains can be up to 6,000 feet high, and the water can be over 3,000 feet deep. We were buzzed a second time by the rigid inflatable boats now on their way back. From the fjord you can only see about 60 metres of this waterfall. This is one of the little communities with no road access where our craft could call in if the stop had been pre-booked. There were several of these optional stops. There were other types of craft plying the fjords, including older generation cruise boats and ferries serving some of the small waterside communities. About halfway through the voyage, we crossed with our sister ship the Vision of the Fjords. Their design may have been inspired by the Oslo Opera House, or perhaps just the zigzags of mountain paths. At an overall 575 metres, this was the most impressive of the fjord falls. Hundredal is another optional stop, even though it has its own road down a valley. It could well be that that becomes impassable with heavy winter snowfalls. This red ball moving was an optical illusion, because it was stationary on a wire across the fjord and we were the ones moving. Our land was the main community we passed on the trip, but even it has a population of less than 1,000. Their main industry is agriculture, with goat's cheese being an important product, but it also makes traditional handmade penny loafer shoes, which are exported to all over the world. Here the main E16 road briefly runs alongside the fjord. The cruise is now nearing its end. It was perhaps a little expensive at about £45, but certainly worth it, with the weather being near perfect. Flem is located at the very end of Ireland's fjord. It's a tiny village with a population of 350. There is one large hotel for travellers wishing to break their journey or to walk the local tracks. Next for me was to be an all-electric minibus up to Steger Stein, an outlook reached by a single-track road with multiple hairpin bends. The viewing platform was more than 2,000 feet above the fjord and was 98 foot long. As well as the views along the fjord and across to the mountains, there was a bird's eye view down to Erlandsvangen. The Highways Authority that had created the outlook had also kindly built toilet facilities with a difference. They were cantilevered out from the hillside, which meant that users could have panoramic views over the fjord whilst maintaining their privacy. If, when returning to Flem, we had turned left on the E16, we would have gone through a 24.5 kilometre tunnel, the longest road one in the world. Once back in Flem, I had time to explore the railway museum and the shops. While the vision of the fjord boat berthed, the local bakery tempted me with a freshly made skalskin boller, a Norwegian bun with soft cinnamon swirls topped with a vanilla custard centre. The name translates as sunshine bun, and they certainly put a smile on your face. After another efficient turnaround, the next cruise departed. I was glad at the time of my visit that there had not been one of the giant cruise liners in port, which simply dwarf the village. It was now time for the penultimate stage of my trip. Many people come to Flem to travel on the railway known as the Flamsbane. The journey from Flem through the valley and up the mountains to Myrdal takes just under an hour and has been named by Lonely Planet as the most beautiful train journey in the world. On its 12.5-mile route, it winds through 20 tunnels, climbing more than 2,800 feet in the process. Photography can be a bit frustrating with the tunnels, cuttings, embankments, trees, poles and snow defences along the route interrupting the views. The Flem Railway is one of the steeper standard gauge railway lines in Europe, with 80% of the journey running on a gradient of 5.5%. The line is single track except for one short loop in the middle where the up and down trains can pass. To the left of the waterfall, a path suitable for walkers and cyclists zigzags down the mountain. The train takes a pause at Voss waterfall, where passengers can alight onto a viewing platform. When the folk music starts, a figure emerges from the forest. She is the Huldra, an elusive forest spirit from Norse mythology who, according to folklore, lures men into the woods to seduce them. It is an enactment by students from the Norwegian ballet school. By the time we arrived at the waterfalls, it started to rain, and there was also a considerable spray from the falls, so I chose the plan of keeping dry and filming from the carriage. The Flem Railway has become incredibly popular, and it can be sold out months in advance, even though each train can carry 500 passengers. Many cruise ship travellers will go up and then immediately return to Flem, making the middle part of the day especially busy. I had left my journey until late in the afternoon to do as part of my return to Bergen. At Myrdal, a now nearly empty train headed back down almost immediately to clear the platform for the mainline train that was to take me back to Bergen. A long but very enjoyable day.